that budget with just a few months left in the year. And then the proposal would be to take that other current expense, retitle it conflict, public defender conflict, and increase that to the 10,000. So it's not a net gain of anything in terms of budgetary expense. It's just a shifting of figures. And currently we're at 5,500, and that includes a billing that was just received from Nadine Hansen on a conflict. Again, he'll present that for your final approval, but I wanted you to see what that would look like. The other portion we had, if you move to the next page, we've got the appeals expense, and we pulled the Natalie Lake, which would technically fall under under expense, district court expense, but really it's a transcript that is an appeal expense. So it's there now where I think that it should be, and you've got a total of $3,000 that has been spent so far this year on the appeals budget. So that just continues to decline, and I guess be a good thing from a budgetary standpoint. We always want to make sure that where public defense is concerned that we're providing fair representation and for the defendants that are in need, and it is our belief that we do. And if ever there were an expense that any of the public defenders felt like they needed to bring forward, we would certainly bring it to you and have it considered. Lastly, on the public defense, what I've provided there is just for your information, the case tracking reports. So on the far left is the 2018 so far through July, and then you can see the comparisons with 2017 and then with 2016. Reminder that as we approach the end of the year, we've got two contracts, the district court contracts that will be coming up. Technically they would automatically, unless anyone notified us, continue through the coming year, but we like to keep it clean. So we'll be presenting those in probably December for Mr. Sundquist and Slack Firm to keep those updated contracts. I have kind of mentioned to both of them that we would like to see those be every 2 years, as long as the commission's in agreement and the attorney's in agreement. And the point of that is that what we've found, especially with us doing these alternating months, is that we're just doing contracts all the time. So if we at least had them every 2 years, it would just cut down on some administrative paperwork.
All those contracts have a escape clause, don't they?
Yes.
So if there was a problem, we could get out of the 2 years.
Absolutely.
I think the 2 year is a good, excellent idea.
And yeah, so that's why I don't think anyone's concerned. I do know that when it comes time for budget discussions, at least Mr. Slack would probably like us to consider, the county, an increase between he and Renee Slack, his wife and assistant. They do put in an awful lot of time, so that's something that we'll discuss at budget time. But I know that he'll want to have that sorted out before those contracts are written. And then the other piece to that is, we're incorporating the appeals addendum so that there's not a separate contract. And we've already done that with the juvenile contracts. So we'll do that here too to make everything real clean. And then I'll continue to help Adrian as we prepare for February. That would be the start time, and then April it would be the time to renew Dale Sessions' contract. Any questions?
On the conflict page, was any one particular office guilty of more conflict than others?
No. You know what happened was the first two were the I think it was Judge Barnes insisted on that sting operation, that we make sure that there was a separate public defender for every one of those cases. So we went outside of our contracts for that. We had to because I believe it was Jeff Slack was hired privately, so he couldn't represent, and we do prefer to stay inside the contracts. So you had Candace Reed. I'm trying to think if Park Firm was involved in that. These ended up only carrying the $1,500. It didn't go to trial because they ended up having family members that helped them obtain private counsel.
The $5,500 is a good minimal amount from what we're used to.
Right, and then the last case is it's actually technically representing this gentleman in 2 child welfare cases. So that's more of a juvenile issue there.
Well, Mr. Sessions has done a wonderful thing for us.
He has.
Wise and financially both.
He's a nice man to deal with. Yeah.
Good guy.
We work together well, and I'll just say that I love the public defender program, so I'm I'm kind of melancholy about the transition, but I'll do everything in my power to help sure that Adrian's up to speed.
Good.
Okay.
We appreciate that help
Thank you.
for
Okay.
sure. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Colson with the emergency management.
Morning, Commissioners. Since this is my first time in front of you with the budget, I hope I didn't bury you in paperwork. And next time, if you just want a summary, I'll provide that. But I figured for the first time, I'd go ahead and give you a stack of papers to look at. With 65% of the fiscal year done, overall my budget is at 61% spent. Most of the line items, and if you want to go over those by line, I'm prepared to do that. But most of them are under 50%. Some of them are under around 1%. So I'm well within budget right now. The only line item that has been spent completely is 281, which is communications alert. And we just committed some more funds this morning. And so I'll be looking into where that's going to come from and get back to you on that. I'm not sure right now. This was the program that I'm talking about was just signed this morning. It was a leftover from my predecessor, and I'm really not up to speed, but it was something that the fire department and the sheriff's office was pressing emergency management for, so and it was something that was already in the works, and so I moved forward with it. This is the start of my 3rd week. I've already met with the sheriff. I met with the fire chief and the fire warden, and we're moving along. Did you want me to go over any of the line items?
I don't really have any.
Only as you deem it necessary.
If you've got something that stands out, I don't have any specific questions.
The only one I'm concerned about is line item 252, which vehicle maintenance. The emergency management vehicle has about 150,000 miles on it. There are a few mechanical problems, and we may need to. That budget is only 1% spent, so we've got funds in there to. Really, this report is pretty much the same as my predecessor gave you last time, because I haven't committed any funds because I don't have a credit card yet. So I haven't committed any funds, but as soon as I get one, I'm going to have to do some vehicle maintenance probably. And we may be looking into, I may approach the commission about retiring that vehicle and maybe looking into a lease vehicle. Pete Kuhlman down in Washington County has told me about a program where it would really actually only cost the county the cost of my vehicle maintenance budget to lease a brand new vehicle every year. So that'll be something I'll have to look into, and I'll present to the commission when I get more facts.
Great.
Okay. Any other questions?
Have you been able to meet with the other fire? You said you met with chief. Have you been able to meet with the paramedic?
No, I've
Brian
got to
Head,
get
or
out to Brian Head and to all the volunteer fire departments, and that's something that we just, now that I don't have to commute anymore, that's going to be something I get done on a daily basis. We're going to get out into the community and actually, be able to shake hands and do face-to-face meetings with some of the other communities and their emergency managers and their fire chiefs.
Right.
Well, we appreciate it. I knew that we felt that you'd hit the ground running, and we appreciate the fact that you have.
Well, and the only time that I will just say about in my first week, I think it was the third day, I got a call about 11 o'clock at night that we had extensive flooding here at around 5200 East out on the other side of town, and that a lot of homes were involved, and the Red Cross was headed that way. So I immediately responded, came up here, and looked the situation over. It turned out to be only one home, but we did respond, and so I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that I was on the ground.
Thank you.
All right.
George, are you aware of the fact that we have some space in the new public safety building? We have some shell space that was our intent to convert into, build into a emergency management training room and share it with the police.
I was aware of that, but I wasn't going to, I was going to wait till I had my feet on the ground for a while before I started approaching the commission about that, because I have other issues right now. But that would be something that, of course, would be great for the emergency management to have an EOC. And
spaces there are shelled. We've stocked it with sheetrock and I think steel framing. I don't think we have any intent to do anything this budget year.
Okay.
But it is there, and
All right.
we've made plans for that.
Is there anything that I need to do to advance that?
No.
All right. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
It'd be good space, though.
Okay. And then I would assume that the intent would be to move my offices over there.
Probably it's basement with no windows, about 6,000 feet, but I think we put in 3 offices or 2. I don't remember, it's been too long.
I've spent most of my life in government service. I've often been in the basement with no windows.
Anyway, there's plans for 2 and maybe 3, I can't remember now.
All right. Good.
We've been past that bridge. Anyways, about 6,000 feet was
That would be fantastic.
size building.
And we might be able to get rid of some of our storage space that way and save a few dollars that way also by moving some stuff in there.
Yeah, good thought.
Great.
But vehicle maintenance, $100 a week, $100 a month is a lot cheaper than 25 to 30,000 bucks.
Yeah. Yes.
So we don't belabor a little maintenance as opposed to buying
All right.
all new vehicles every year.
Well, and that's my intent too, to make sure that that my budget is realistic, and that we can get the job done, and generally we can get it done fairly inexpensively. So,
Great.
all right.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
All right.
I think that's it for our 9 o'clock agenda. That was
I've got a couple of things if you got a minute.
okay.
Did I,
Yeah,
did
commissioners.
I mention the fire at the landfill with the compactor? last
has been
meeting?
discussed.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, that compactor was bought in 2009 for about 540,000, I think, and to repair it is 586,000. So we're probably not going to go that direction, but anyway, we're working with USIP, and we'll get that squared away. But unfortunate incident. Anyway, another thing, we have a forest stewardship group that's working together, Iron, Garfield, and Paiute. And we've enlisted a guy by the name of Tom Quigley to come. We're not paying him anything at this point, but he's a former Forest Service employee and has a lot of great ideas about how to move forward with better stewardship of the forest. So we had our first meeting in Garfield the other day, and it was productive, and I think that will bear fruit as we go forward with this administration, at least we hope.
That was a weird time on that 3 to 9 o'clock.
Oh, it was 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Did you get it?
He had it 3 to 9.
Oh, no. And then we ended up getting done about 1:30. So yeah. Oh, anyway. Hopefully you can make it to the next one. So, but it was good. We also had this past week our first ever audit committee meeting. Michael Spilker of our our outside auditing company was here and presented, and he said that they do, did he say hundreds or dozens? They do a lot of public entities, and he said maybe 3% have an audit committee. So kudos to Dan for stepping up and raising the bar and doing that. So Dan, Nicole, Dave Harris of Enoch, not of Parowan, and myself are on that committee. We had a good meeting the other night, and so that will help to keep things more straight as far as audits go. I think that's all I have.
Another star on your band low, dude.
Yeah.
By the way, I have some financial statements for two of you. Alan got one in that meeting.
And the fair is well underway, so don't miss out. Come to the mother town and enjoy yourself.
So I think each of you got copies, 2 things from Brian Bremner from Garfield County. He sent us the link that they're using for their inventoried roadless access on Forest Service lands. And so that's just for our benefit if we want to use it. The other thing we have from him is a statement. They're pursuing a feasibility study for the
Parkway.
Olin Rock Centennial Parkway project. Is that the right name? Anyway, they've put up $40,000 for that, and they've asked us if we wanted to expand that to come through to do portions of Iron County too, and I think we should. So we need to give that some consideration and talk to Maria about hopefully funding that for $5,000 or $10,000.
I mentioned it to her the other day. Well, I think it was last meeting. And
Anyway, we've since gotten a request from them that we hadn't had. Then USAC is the 16th in
Daniel's
Summit.
Summit.
Just one night only. It's an afternoon, Wednesday afternoon, Thursday morning. I think John's probably registered us already.
Actually, I'm waiting on Mike. Are you? Did you? Well, we can have this discussion offline, but I wanted to see whether you're.
It's September. What are the dates again?
See the 16th, I think,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Of September?
Yeah, there's an option for a guest.
There is no Wednesday the 16th. Let's see. It's the 19th and 20th.
Okay.
19th.
Unfortunately, that's the same day as the field hearing with Zenke on the 20th down here, so that's going to be a bad conflict.
Well, it's not much of an agenda for this,
For USAC?
yeah.
Anyway, Mike,
And frankly,
I just.
I'll get with you before the end. I've got, no, I'm pretty sure not.
I can just go ahead and get it done then. I'll do that while we're here, maybe during the break or whatever.
Okay, I've got a couple of conflicts, but I can probably move them. Let me work on that.
Okay, just let me know. We just
is
wanted
that
to get it
Zinke thing something we need to worry about, Alan?
Well, it would be nice to attend. I just read up briefly on it. I don't have enough information to give you a good answer right now, but I will forward the email. But it could be a pretty big thing for us.
Well, it doesn't take much to trump that thing. We gotta quit using the trumps when we trump things. Outshine USAC.
I'll get some information to you on that. We can talk about it, make a decision.
There's something else I'm forgetting, so I guess I'll have to come back to it.
Okay, I don't have anything. So we are on break for a few minutes. We'll come back at 10 o'clock with the rest of the commission agenda. All right, welcome back. We will be back on the record with the remainder of the agenda this morning. We're going to start with item number 1 on the agenda, public appointments. Number 1 is we're going to reopen the county budget for fiscal year 2018. Does that need a motion, or do we just open it?
Just open it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think you need
Uh,
to approve it.
Hearing, yeah.
Great. And then we'll invite Dan Jessen from our Iron County Auditor to speak on this.
Can you put the display on this guy right here?
You betcha.
George?
Oh, maybe he's got to be up before it'll change over. Oh, you got it.
Mine popped up.
You need to. No? Sorry. There we go.
There it goes.
You want
Nice if I could see that. There we go. I think I'm good. Okay, so before we have the public hearing on the budget, the amended budget, I usually like to do a little bit of a report so people have an idea. At the beginning of the year, when we're setting the budget, I go into quite a lot of detail. And at the end of the year, when we're doing final budget adjustments, I go into a fair amount of detail. Middle of the year budget adjustments like this are usually pretty much housekeeping, but I did want to hit on some high points. The commissioners in the packet have the entire document, 103 pages, and then also in the email I sent of just the adjustments that have been done. So I'll go ahead and go through some of those highlights and address any questions, and then obviously there'll be a chance for the public to make comment before the commission takes action or anything. So I'll kind of leave it open if anybody has comments or questions as I go along. So 2018 budget adjustment highlights. We are adjusting, and it hits several items throughout the entire budget. Most department salaries and wages lines. This is for the budget adjustments that were done. I mean, not the budget adjustments, the adjustments to the salaries and wages that was done a couple of months ago, that was talked about in detail. The total effect of those is $226,120 in salaries and wages, and corresponding there was an effect on benefits as well, but it was not nearly as much, just to the basically retirement and some of those things that are based on the wages. There wasn't a change directly to benefits. It was mainly just to address salaries and wages, as you guys know. The T-Mobile grant that we were going to put, it was almost $500,000, was going to run through the county. That was to the television service. That was a grant from T-Mobile, who bought the spectrum, that was going to be funneled through PBS for tax purposes. That has been removed from the county budget, both the revenue and the expense, due to the fact that that will be run through University of Utah instead of through the county. So, and it was a large enough budget item that I went ahead and actually just removed the entire thing from the budget. It was going to be a pass-through and keep us whole anyways, but I figured it was really best to go ahead and remove that. Courthouse remodel. There was, at the time we created the budget back in November, there was a number of things that were still unknown. So rather than just guess high, I only put the things in the budget we were aware of, knowing that we were going to have quite a bit of costs. This is the rare occasion where we'll adjust the budget to the actual what it happened, but I felt it was the most appropriate in this instance. It was about $257,000 adjusting to the budget, plus $33,000 that was for some furniture and some equipment, copiers, stuff like that. All of those things were approved on a case-by-case basis through the commission. Dale was involved in most of those personally as those expenses were done. This includes the things that were approved in the last commission meeting with the landscaping. It also includes the anticipated monument sign that's out front. This should capture everything. Also, there's some interest there that wasn't calculated as we paid off that bond. So that $290,000 should bring us good. There was also engineering adjustment of $52,000 to get us whole with the engineers. And again, we just didn't know exactly where we were going to be when we created the budget in November. So, election equipment. This was discussed at length and approved in a prior meeting. And John, if you have anything you want to say about that, we put it in there at $123,000. That includes the $117,000 that's already been spent, and we put a little bit of a contingency in there for.
There was an anticipation for some electronic poll books, which we talked about in our summer meetings. We may do that this year. We may try and budget for next year. But again, that was the offset there so far was $86,000. We're hoping to get more out of the state to help defray those costs. I appreciate
being reimbursed by the
$86,000
six of it.
so far, and I'm hoping for more before we're done.
And that I did put a revenue of $86,000 in the budget as well. 911 phone system. We actually budgeted this in 2017, and it didn't happen. It has since been spent, but we needed to adjust 18's budget. This was a phone system, $240,000, that 90% of which we will be reimbursed from the state on, but it was nowhere found in the budget. So, overtime. This was one that was separate from the salaries and wages discussion, and it's a large enough line item that I wanted to bring it up. And admittedly, it's somewhat of a projection at a guess, and 100,000. My guess was actually really close, really close to that. So I rounded it to 100,000. Just to speak about that for a second. As you know, we've talked about it at length. The jail is understaffed, and to the extent that they have the normal staffing not covered with, they have to cover that with overtime hours, which comes straight out of the overtime budget. So what we see that they come in under budget on salaries and wages, and then they have overtime. The overtime this year, and I think this is important to point out, was not based on last year's overtime. And this isn't 100,000 more than last year's overtime. This is 100,000 more than the optimal overtime level. And we reset that every year. That's really Adrian's call, but I know that's been his methodology. So this represents about 40,000 more than last year's total overtime budget. And as I thought about that, and I talked with Joanna, for one, we're now paying a little bit higher wages. As you know, overtime is based at time and a half. So that alone will increase that number. And two, we're a little bit worse off than we were last year as far as staffing. And I've talked with Joanna about that. She's working to mitigate that as much as she can within her the confines of management, you know, ability to mitigate that. But anyways, anything you want to add to that, Joanna? Or we're good. Any questions?
If you have questions, I mean,
Well, we've talked about it a lot. I just
yeah. If you have questions, I don't mind answering.
I don't think so.
Safety services building. We have two impacts to the budget there. We at the time we created the budget, we weren't sure. We knew what the amounts were, but we weren't sure where we were going to put it, and that's why it wasn't in the budget. That's the principal and interest payment on the bond for that building. Has been added, and we're doing that in Fund 30, which is our combined debt service fund. And we also have the lease revenue, which we will put to that account as well, or to that fund as well. The only piece that is still missing, and it's not in the budget, and I will adjust at the end of the year, is we will receive more from our rent payments than it costs to pay the principal and interest. The difference will go towards operation and O&M, and we will put that in an account and just put that aside, so when we do need to do major maintenance items, carpet, things like that, then we have that money set aside. So right now I've budgeted and I've put the exact same amount of revenue as the principal and interest, and the reality is we'll receive more revenue than that $200,500.
Analyze, that's readjusted every year.
Yeah, and we'll just ferret that away into an account so that when those expenses come up, it gets paid for out of that, not out of the county's pocket. So, Fund 61, the Iron County Community Development and Renewal Agency. We did not have the new SunEdison CDA in that budget at the time we created the budget. We didn't know what the numbers would be, and so we have the revenue coming in from that tax increment and being paid out, $82,957 in this year. So that was added. Safety services building landscaping was approved in a prior meeting, and that was based on the bid that came in, $65,213. I was adding that. Corridor preservation. This is the corridor preservation dollars that we have that we can spend on planning and on purchase of right-of-ways and so forth. We have 2 planning projects that are going this year, and we really only had like $30,000 budgeted, so we're adding $39,500 to that. Of that, if Reed was here, Reed is here. What was the reason why there was a small increase to Horrocks Engineers?
We had a contract increase that UDOT participated 10,000 in.
That's right.
10,000 revenue.
That's right. And that is built into that number as well. So again, we're spending those dollars within the purpose that they're received. They're not general fund dollars, so it's more or less housekeeping, but it was a large item, so I wanted to point it out. TRT, there was a couple of small requests, and then there was a large request and this was a department initiated, $30,000 for advertising promotion that came from the board. Is that right, Maria? A request to do that. I don't know the nature of that or if there's any questions about that. Enterprise City Park, $25,000 donation, which previously discussed and approved in a commission meeting. Search and Rescue, SUU helicopter, that was a donation to enhance the equipment on that, which was previously discussed and approved.
Dan, sorry to interrupt you. You might mention why we contribute, for the public, why we contributed to the Enterprise City Park.
Yeah, so the Enterprise City Park, they had it was quite a large project. I mean, the dollar amount was near $1 million, wasn't it? $4 million. They asked the county to participate. Enterprise is in Washington County, but for practical purposes serves a good portion of the west end of the county of our residents. They go to school there. A lot of them do some shopping there, and they use that park, and they asked us to help with that. And there was some talk that the Holt family, who was really driving a lot of that, They didn't commit, but they said that they would look at maybe doing something in Burrell in the future and helping out.
In Newcastle. the park in
Newcastle. Not Burrell, Newcastle.
$15,000 worth of equipment they plan to donate.
Yeah, they're going to donate some equipment. So we have a good relationship out there, and that was the nature of that. The sheriff's trucks, we did 3 new trucks this year. The budget was based on an old bid. When the new bid came in, neither Mark nor I caught that it was a different amount. It was based on a 17 truck instead of a 2018 truck. When the trucks came and were put together, we noticed that it had gone over budget. And in fact, we spent a week or two trying to figure out what had happened, but everything was within. Everything was.
Sheriff,
What's that?
you have the trucks yet?
Yeah, they're being built up, in the build-outs on them now.
You don't have them here though, yeah.
We've received possession of them and then take them up to Premier
Yeah.
to get them outfitted, so they should be on the road soon. Public Health Fund. If you're anti-tax person, close your ears. We knew that there was going to be an increase there. We estimated it based on the census population, and when everything was said and done, it came in about 10,000 higher, 10,277 higher. That puts the total transfer from the general fund to subsidize the public health fund at about 100,000. It's just under 100,000. I'm not suggesting a tax increase. I'm suggesting that we consider now, as we move into the budgeting for 2019, we're now subsidizing that fund, which has its own revenue source from the general fund to the tune of about 100,000. If you guys have any inclination to do any sort of adjustment to that mill rate, we have to start the process around September. So something to think about. If you're comfortable subsidizing it, that's fine. That's the only of really the other funds that have their own tax source that is running in the red that we have to subsidize. The library fund, by definition, we pay out what we get in. Assessing and collecting is holding its own, and municipal services is holding its own. So that's the only fund that has its own tax source that we're subsidizing from the general fund currently. So
I think the main reason we've felt okay about general fund is that that particular program serves everyone in the
everybody
county.
in the county, sure.
So it isn't a specialty group or whatever. It's a county function. So I don't think it's inappropriate to the general fund.
About 6 is take it from the general fund or increase the mill levy. It's
Yeah.
gonna be spread over everywhere.
And if the general fund was really hurting, then you may and you had to do an increase somewhere, you'd want to do the increase where it actually, keep things in the right pocket. Just wanted to point that out. Justice Court, we had, as we know, our Chief Justice was out due to a health issue for a while, and we had to contract with other judges. The total adjustment to cover that is $6,000, and it was just under that. But there was zero budgeted there, and that was money that had to come out. So I wanted to point that out because I know that we were in this meeting discussing and trying to weigh everything in the balance, and that's what it ended up coming out to. Well, that's pretty tiny, but all of the adjustments that are there, that total, you'll see not every fund on the left is represented. That's because not every fund had adjustments. That's the total increase. Now keep in mind, revenues to cover those, some of them come from the fund balance, others come from an offsetting revenue, as like we mentioned with John in the elections and so forth. But this is the total amount that the budget was adjusted. Now our total budget is more than $40 million when you see it amended, but that's only the funds that were affected by $1.5 million in aggregate in total. And like I said, a lot of those are coming from various revenue sources. Some of them are coming out of the general fund being appropriated, and some of them are coming from offsetting revenues and grants and so forth. But that's the total. summary of the budget adjustments. So if the commissioners have any questions about that, if not, I will sit down and we can turn it over to public comment for.
Well, we've discussed everything there.
Yep.
During the year, there's no surprises to us.
No, there's small stuff, housekeeping stuff that's under $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, a couple $100. There's little adjustments all throughout, but most of those are housekeeping.
On your spread page, you might change that from safety services to public safety, so we're all talking the same language.
Well, we were all calling it public services until I was told, no, we got to call this safety services building. So I've started to switch everything.
Safety.
It's officially public safety.
Public safety building, yeah.
All righty. Good enough. Tomato, tomato. I'll change it.
It's public safety in my notes down here, so.
All right.
Okay. Thank you. Chair now declares public hearing open for comments on the 2018 Iron County budget amendments. Any public comments. Seeing none, chair declares the public hearing closed. We'll consider agenda item number 4, consider to approve and adopt the amended 2018 budget with the changes just discussed.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the amended budget for fiscal year 2018 as presented by the county auditor.
And the amended difference is $1,514,489.19. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'll add that to my motion. Thank you.
And I'll second.
Okay, has been motion and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That is approved. Thank you very much, Dan, for keeping us on track with that. The budget is a big undertaking. We appreciate our auditor's office for that budget.
Did a spotless job.
Okay. Get technology switched around really quickly. All right, item number 5 on the agenda today is public comments. I just want to remind everybody of the guidelines to our public comments. Public comments will be held a 3-minute time limit per speaker for those participants. People making public comments should not repeat other people's comments. Only for items not on the agenda, no items related to the commission's role as an appeal board. Comments should be directed to the commission, and we would act that there are no personal attacks on other people's character during our comment time. Chair is going to open the floor to public comments.
Got one right here. Raise your hand.
Yes, ma'am. If you'd approach and just state your name for the record, for the clerk, and
Sure, good morning. My name is Shona Brown. I'm a resident of Iron County in Check-Shawnee Cliffs subdivision. And my comments today are in reference to the change in the use permit for Blue Skies Ranch. I think you're familiar with that. We've previously provided a letter with some signatures from our community with some of the concerns that we have and that we'd like to see addressed. I have 3 points I want to touch on briefly since I've only got the 3 minutes. The first one, I'm going to address my concerns that an industrial operation so close to our culinary well may cause adverse effects. The second one I want to talk about is the need for accountability for this operation in light of their past performance on their previous permit. And then third, I want to talk about transparency and the benefits of having that for us as a community. First of all, I don't know what chemicals are being used on site at this operation. There are 12 businesses being operated out of there. We don't know what's being used, stored, or spilled inevitably. With any kind of industrial operation, there's typically industrial solvents, petroleum products, other toxic materials, and these are a concern. We want to maintain the quality of our soil and water in the county. So even routine rinsing of a chemical, did you have a question?
Yeah, we've not seen the report you're talking about.
John has that, copy of that. I've got some, and it's the general concerns.
I think, I think I got
So what I'm providing now are
You
more.
emailed this, didn't you?
Well, I did.
We emailed part, yes.
Okay, so I have
This
received it.
particular copy has the full set of signatures on it. The first
Come in
one
under
is only a partial. So I just want to point out that, even routine rinsing of things that are being constructed into the septic system is a misuse of a septic system, number one, because they're not designed to handle industrial pollutants. And it doesn't contain them. These kinds of materials don't break down in the soil like bacteria and other organics would. And they can migrate and contaminate soil and water for decades. And that's happened all over the country in the U.S. And we don't want to be another example of that. So I think it's important that we consider that maybe an operation such as this might need to have some containment measures put in place for spills. Also might need to have some monitoring wells right around the periphery so that we could monitor closely if anything is seeping off site, we could catch it before it gets into the aquifers or before it gets into our culinary water. It's really important to do that. I think we need to be proactive because there have been a lot of examples where an industry has started up, left a mess, and decided they couldn't afford to clean it up. And so they just basically declare bankruptcy, and it leaves the county and the residents holding the bag and paying the price for it. And we don't want that, and I think we can avoid it. Just to point out that these chemicals, it's well known that they can cause direct toxicity, can cause cancer or birth defects. And these are things that I think all the people in the county care about avoiding. Second point I want to make is that we need to ensure the accountability of the permittee. There has been an apparent lack of compliance in the past with their agricultural land use permit, and I think this just highlights a need for regular monitoring and enforcement of the new permit.
Okay,
And I
that's
think
your
reasonable.
that's your 3 minutes. Sorry.
Okay, well, the last one was just transparency. The more we know, chances are you could probably put some of our concerns at rest. But by not knowing the information, it makes it very difficult for us to know what is a fact and what is not. Thank you for your time and your attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else with public comments? Yes, sir.
Yes, my name's Maurice Brown, and I'm from Chickasha Cliffs also. And I'm kind of curious, knowing that this business has been allowed, and now there's another one across the street that's been allowed. It looks like a welding shop. I'm not certain. We don't have any information on that. So I'm wondering, are we planning on turning that into an industrial area out in our area? That's some of my great concerns, And with the other one, there again, monitoring, and it seems like we've rewarded non-compliance. Now, how are we going to protect that that's going to not happen again? That's something I would like answered. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Marlene Houston, and I'm Iron County Rural, just west of Canaryville. As I looked at all of the documents, I was left with some real questions. I tried to do a history of BZI, aka Canara Mountain Ranch, aka Blue Skies Ranch, and farther back than though I didn't go. I did find their listed 12 businesses, and I noticed that the topic of land use for Canara Mountain Ranch LLC was listed on the agenda under Public Appointments item number 3, described as discussion on the land use permit for Blue Skies Ranch, and that was for the Iron County Commission meeting on 7/23. There were extensive public comments made. A lot of them I've talked to, although those aren't posted or listed in the minutes, and so I couldn't see exactly what was said. I was not present at the meeting. The Iron County Assessor, Cindy Bullock, did not know of 9 additional businesses running out of that site and advised the commission at that meeting of the continual problem of its business location and their willingness to hide business operations and the assessor's access to the site. A mere 7 days later, the conditional use permit was recorded. So I'm wondering how we were able to complete due diligence. Due diligence would be all state and laws, ordinances, all of which are specifically cited in the CUP. In that short time frame, which is really just 11 calendar days, the Iron County zoning commissioners and the commissioners, you gentlemen, apparently completed that due diligence, ensuring that Canara Mountain Ranches was compliant with federal, state, iron, Department of Environmental, Southwest Utah Public Health rules, regulations related to the uses authorized in the permit, including without limitation the county zoning ordinances and all applicable building and safety codes. With the county assessor not having known of 9 additional businesses until 7/23 of this year, it just seems so unlikely that due diligence could have been done in such a short time to include the septic facility. So the septic facility supposedly was for 10 people. Now we're going up to 45 people. Certainly one septic tank's not going to be able to handle that, in addition to what's just been stated that I won't restate about other items and chemicals going in there. The water rights was a real problem. I could only find one document that listed the water right. When I actually researched that water right, and I'll state that so that it can be read into the record, is water right number 81-324. The claim number is A28181. Amazingly, the name for that is Ashworth Revocable Living Trust. And according to the Water Rights Government website, that water right is located northwest of Cedar City. Not sure how the water's coming from there to get out. I also don't know where the where the irrigation water's coming from. I can't find any water rights for that. Are there water rights? Was that done? Do you know that for sure? Are there the septic systems up to par?
Okay, that's
and
your
then
3 minutes.
I'm going to ask for just another minute. It's when I did the history, it was so obvious in dates. The administrative land use permit was recorded on July 1st, 15. Blue Skies Ranch already existed a year earlier. The following businesses already existed at that time: Building Zone Industries, BZI Construction. And then during the land permit, before the CUP was issued, the other businesses, which are not agricultural, which the land permit specifically stated should be agricultural, were Perpetual Tools, Perpetual Surfaces, BZI Construction, Unipro Tools, Rock Lifts, WEM Manufacturing, who does water jets. So they were completely non-compliant while they had the land use permit. And I can't understand why we would trust them now and give them the conditional use permit. So in closing then, just real quick, is the site, Canara Mountain Ranch LLC at 1233 South Old Highway 91, Canaraville, Utah, in compliance with the land use permit now? Is it in compliance with the CUP for light industry? Is there a water right for culinary water? Is there a water right for irrigation water? And speaking to the CUP, that is cited in there about lights and the night sky. So where I live, I can see directly. They shine right towards me, and yet I'm, as a crow flies, 5 miles away. Those lights are so bright. The night sky doesn't exist over them. And so they're in absolute direct non-compliance with the lighting. Yes.
You can have my 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. The primary land use was supposed to be agricultural, and yet it wasn't. So in the end, who's going to be responsible to do this? Is it me that's going to sit and try to find and do due diligence? I mean, as an Iron County resident, I do accept some responsibility to that. But I really have to ask you commissioners to please answer these questions. Somebody needs to be held responsible, and why? Why, after someone is completely non-compliant or so non-compliant with one permit, would a second permit be issued? Also in the CUP, it says no new buildings. There's a building being constructed on that site right now. So the Iron County Commission has now set a precedence, and be aware, this is a precedence. We can all, as Iron County residents, feel a little bit better about doing whatever we want, and after the fact, come in here and then beg for forgiveness and ask yet for another use. Please, commissioners, I expect so much more for you. I actually voted for all of you because I expect so much. You're held so highly by us. Protect us better. Thank you.
Thank you.
What's her name?
Arlene Houston.
Morning, Jerry.
Hi, how are you, Dale? Hi, Jerry Arts, Canaryville. Gentlemen, I spoke to you on the 27th of July at your council meeting and tried to alert you as to what was going on. And the previous speakers, you know, pretty much summed it up. What's going on, I mean, when a business deceives you, deceives the county, and then you reward them to give them a higher conditional use permit to make them legal, that's just plain wrong. On the 27th of July, I asked you, before anything proceeds, please contact, you know, the residents of that surround that business. Didn't happen. The two adjacent properties got notified. And then, by luck, I was in to see Chad Nye on the 3rd of August, and he told, at 2 in the afternoon, and he told me about the Planning Commission that evening at 5:30 that was going to decide this. So, you know, 3.5 hours later, I was at the Planning Commission, and there were numerous people from Canaryville there and Chickasha Cliffs. And we voiced our concerns, and much of the same as what you heard here today. So here you have an unelected, unpaid, volunteer force, 7 people, that decided to go ahead and authorize the movement from an administrative land use permit that they clearly haven't been adhering to for the 3 years they've been in operation, and reward them with a conditional use permit. Now, Mr. Jolly in the back of the room at the Planning Commission meeting stood up and stated he agreed they should be in an industrial park, and he could see or foresee in 5 years or so that they would move to an industrial park. So the plant foreman of that operation stated in that Planning Commission that effect. The county attorney gave about a 5-minute presentation telling the Planning Commission, you gotta give them this. There's only been one conditional use permit that's been denied in 10 years. Okay? Mr. Erickson gave a presentation much to the same effect. You have to give them this conditional use permit. So today, you know, that was on the 3rd of August. And on the 10th of August, the thing was signed, registered, and filed with the county. I came here on the 13th, your first monthly meeting in August, and you let me talk for 10 minutes during the 3-minute speech period. Nobody told me that it was already a done deal, that it was already filed. Mr. Erickson sat there, didn't say anything. County attorney sat there, didn't say anything. You 3 never told me that, neither did the county clerk, Mr. Whittier. Whittaker.
Whitaker.
There you go. Gentlemen, this is wrong. Okay, Mr. Nye just told me that the only, or one of the only approving authorities in the county is the Planning Commission. You guys don't even get a shot at it. That's wrong. You're the elected officials. They're volunteers, non-paid. What the hell are they making decisions?
Because we appointed them as an appointed position. They're not volunteers. They're appointed by the county attorney, or not by the county attorney. They're appointed by the county commission to serve in that role.
All right. Okay.
It's a misrepresentation.
All right. But they're not paid.
and I understand they're appointed, but you guys are the ones that have should have the final vote on something this critical, not this group of planning commission making this kind of a decision.
That's your, well, it's beyond the time, but.
All right. Thank you very much. You heard the last of me, and that's probably, you'll probably be happy about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, ma'am.
Sitting too long, it's like my legs aren't working. I'm Patty Truax. I also live in Iron County, west of Canaryville. And I just want to say up front that I expect that the zoning ordinances are meant to protect the community members against people who will abuse those ordinances and probably negatively affect the other members in the community. And that's exactly what is happening. Because those people who are ignoring the zoning requirements, which is done with Canara Mountain Ranches, it is not an A20 eligible or applicable company to be on those properties, and it should have never been given the permits to build businesses there to begin with, because it was not agricultural. And the conditional report, the conditional land use permit, also should not have been awarded to them without any public input, and I think it should be rescinded, just to protect the community members. And I'd like you to do that. Thank you.
Thank
because
you.
it is the law.
Thank you.
The zoning ordinances.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Paulette Baker from Iron County. I live in Chickasha Cliffs, a little south of Canaryville. I wasn't planning on talking today, but I just want to kind of put in my 2 cents from a mother's perspective. My husband and I have 2 children. We have grandchildren. We came here from Las Vegas about 1.5 years ago. Several of our friends and family members are considering moving here too. And I feel almost compelled to let them know that there could be a problem with our water down the road, unless I know that something is being looked at, investigated, and controlled if necessary. I'm really concerned about the water. My children come and visit, they bathe in it, they drink it, we cook with it, and having a site that might be contaminating water in their septic system just about half a mile away from our water source is really a concern. So I'm just hoping that you guys will look into that and make sure it's addressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name's Corey Stokes. I'm from Chickasha Cliffs. I've lived there for the last 12 years or so. And first and foremost, I want to say I really appreciate the lights being turned down at this particular business. I don't know what happened. I don't know what changed, but over the last couple of weeks, I don't have the bright, glaring lights in my windows all night long. Very cool, very appreciated. I don't know if you guys had anything to do with it, but thank you. Second of all, I think one of the big concerns that I have is the amount of traffic that's increased. I live right off of 91, and I see people just speeding very fast. They go past me very fast, both directions. I've had huge issues going by the complex, this manufacturing plant, and where as I'm driving down, I'm watching kids that are young, too young to drive, in cars, in four-wheelers that come right out in front of me. Scary, scary deal. Really worried about that. I don't want to kill anybody. And I don't want to be killed. I don't want my kids to be killed. Something that I'm concerned about. one of the concerns that I had when they first started building the complex was them coming over and hooking up a water truck and filling up their water truck with a hydrant that was there at Czech Shawnee. For a long time, there was no meter there. I know that they weren't getting out. I know they weren't paying for the water. And the question I have for you all is, have you checked with the Water Conservatory? Do you know how much water they've taken out of there? That's happened several times. So everything else that I have on my list has been discussed, and I appreciate you giving me a few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Mr. Nate?
I'm not going to make a public comment because I am a county employee, as y'all know. I'm the zoning officer in Billings, but I would like...
Chad, if you could come up to the microphone, that'd be...
While we have so many of you grouped together that is concerned with this, I would like to invite anybody, even the sheriffs, whoever, to come down to, I'll try to line it up down in a room down below right here in the old commission chambers. This is spur of the moment, so I'm not sure that's available. So if you have some patience till we find a room, I would like to talk to a lot of you and see if we can't straighten just a little bit of the rumors and concerns out and get you in a better direction. But I do appreciate all your comments. We just need to kind of get you steered in maybe the right directions and so forth, and educate a little bit on that management.
They're both you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Chad, while you're there,
Yeah.
as Dr. Blodge is, who's with Southwick Public Health that does the water testing? I'm groping around.
Well, and that's what I want to talk to him about. That is part of it. He's asking, if you didn't hear that, who does the water testing and so forth, who would be actually responsible to do that. That's kind of the stuff I'd like to cover with you.
That's actually DE.
Taking up a lot of commission time here that you're kind of in the wrong venue for. I'm trying to help you there, if you would, please. So anybody's welcome. Okay, thank you.
We want to hear from Jessup. Do you want to respond?
I'm going to try and line up right now, but we have to get...
Chad, both of those rooms are available. You can either meet across the hall, which is actually probably easier.
Actually, I have a conference call going across the hall.
Oh, so downstairs in the old commission room.
So I split my guys up. I have one of my planners there, Mr. Erickson's over there. He didn't mean to avoid you. I know he's in here earlier, so I had to cover that. So he's covering that one for me right now while I'm covering this.
Yeah, you'll fit downstairs in the old commission room.
Downstairs will work
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Commissioner.
Enough space down there?
Thank you all. Yeah, there's plenty of space there. We had a bigger group than this the other day.
And we as a commission do appreciate your public comments and want you to know that we are actively involved in this process. We're because this isn't an agenda item and things, we aren't allowed to take any action or make any decisions, anything like that today, but we do appreciate your comments.
That will be taken into consideration though by you guys, right?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, folks.
All right, moving on to agenda item number 6. Consider the approval of resolution 2018-8 to appoint George Coulson as executive committee member of the Southwest Regional Response Team.
Mr. Chairman, since we've already discussed it and welcomed Mr. George to our employ, I'd recommend and move the approval of resolution 2018-8 to officially appoint George Coulson as executive committee member of the Southwest Regional Response Team.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That is approved.
Thank you.
All right. Item number 7 is the request to purchase property owned by Iron County located in the Parkview subdivision. This is a request by Mr. George Letterman and Nathaniel Pugh.
I'm George Letterman, Commissioner.
Good morning.
And the board.
Morning, sir.
Morning.
We discussed this a long time ago, back in October of last year, wanting to purchase this. And we've been told by John that it had to get approved by the county attorney. And we've contacted John several times in the last 6 months, and he said this still hasn't been done. So we don't know, are we not able to purchase it, or are we still waiting, or?
Well, the issue, and I asked John quickly, because I didn't remember talking about this back. So I asked John, he reminded me that there was an issue with the county's supposed to have an ordinance discussing what is a significant parcel of real property.
I'm sorry, Mike, could you speak into the microphone?
We don't have an ordinance describing what is a significant parcel of real property. A significant parcel of real property has to be handled differently than just a non-significant parcel of real property, if you catch what I'm trying to tell you. So we could just deal with this as it is, under the assumption that it is a significant parcel of real property, and proceed that way if that's what we'd like to do.
Is there any reason why we shouldn't, based on your opinion?
Just treat it like a significant parcel of real property? Yeah, that's fine.
What is the size of this property?
So there.
There's two properties. One's 12 acres. It's on the north end of property we own. And there's another one on the south end. It's called the Parkview subdivision, which is, I don't know if the word is condemned, that I'm interested in. That's 9 acres, 9+ acres.
Thank you. So this is the one that has.
So you're not trying to buy the 12,
Yes.
George?
So
Nathaniel is on the north end, and I was trying to get the piece on the south
We
end.
got
That
two
would-
different parcels.
Correct.
That would combine everything together that we own together.
So there are several issues here. This is right by in that Fisher area in Enoch. There's a 12-acre piece that I believe Nathaniel wants to buy, and then multiple of the subdivision lots that have not yet been vacated but are in the area that they wouldn't ever get a building permit. So this whole issue is a bit fraught, regardless of the legalities. I think there are. Dan.
Just to address what you're saying, Rob was he's en route. He wanted to be here. He texted me. And he said,
Rob Dotson, the Enoch City manager.
He said Enoch City supports the purchase. Properties surround Enoch property, but they're discussing vacating the subdivision and consolidating all of their properties. So this plays into the city's plans as they try to unwind this whole mess.
And it's fraught a little bit more in that some of the lots are still privately held in the subdivision that would need to be vacated for the parcels that Mr. Letterman is interested in.
There's only one lot, and we didn't want to proceed to try and purchase that one lot if we weren't able to purchase the whole package.
Right.
So we're trying to get all the big stuff first, then we'll go back and make them a decent offer on that one lot.
And then,
and if they don't, we'll just always provide them access to it.
so I almost suggest that maybe we meet with Enoch City offline, like, and our county attorney. I think there's a couple of questions that need to be answered. One is, Mr. Letterman would like to pay not for individual building lots because they won't ever be that. And so there's got to be some kind of a negotiated price.
An appraisal. Also.
And so an appraisal. And so there, I think we're moving in the right direction, but this really is a challenging situation.
It is a unique situation, yes. The 12 acres on the north end that Nathaniel wants to buy, that's a clear, dedicated, square, vacant piece of ground, which shouldn't be anywhere near as complicated as the Parkview subdivision. The whole separate issue. So
yeah,
even though they're all connected.
So the 9-acre parcel you're after, George, was that come in from a tax sale? How did we acquire it?
Yeah, it was from the tax sale, but it was withheld because it was within the Fisher area. And then we've got a separate issue that we, on our surplus list, we haven't been selling them. There's been a concern that Mike's had that we haven't quite been able to get addressed yet on just regular surplus properties. And so that's part of the reason that Mr. Letterman and Mr. Pugh are here, because they've been asking for a while, and we haven't been able to give them a solid answer on what course of action they could have, or a solid no for that matter. And so I think even before we have a meeting, it would be good to kind of get notion for how the commission feels about moving forward with these two proposed transactions and kind of a starting point. I mean, it sounds like Enoch City isn't opposed, but that I think with the Fisher Zone, with the subdivision issue, I think there's a few issues to be worked through.
How did we acquire the 12-acre parcel?
That was the one that Dale was asking about, and that was acquired at tax sale.
Oh, I thought that was the 9-acre.
The 9 acres, one I'm asking.
They both were tax sale?
Yeah.
But only one of them was in the declared fissure area?
No.
Yes.
They're all
in that fissure area.
Okay.
Well, the one I'm interested in, the Parkview subdivision on the south end, is close to the fissure. And City of Enoch, I've met with Rob Dobson several times. He said they're not going to allow building permits, but they're not going to deny them. They're going to do a study on the fissure. That could take 20 years. We're willing to accept it the way it is and do a non-buildings on it.
The challenge with building, and I'm really familiar with this area, it has to do with the utilities. So getting utilities to that subdivision is not really going to happen. So if somebody's going to buy, especially large parcels, and do something non-building related, agricultural or something like that, then it's kind of a separate issue. Then you have a bunch of lots that are still owned, it's still part of a subdivision, and they're not going to let them build. But to the extent that somebody could aggregate and do something else with the lots, the city's willing to move ahead with it.
Yeah, and I believe that's the intent. But currently, the subdivision has not yet been vacated and is not wholly owned by Iron County. So we could vacate part of the subdivision, and then there's a question of the engineering involved and the costs for vacation of a subdivision.
But it wouldn't be us vacating the subdivision. The Enoch City subdivision.
Well, I know, but we're the owners.
And we're the owners of a few of the lots.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
The city would have to vacate the subdivision.
Well,
Your question, George, is do we have any
there's
interest in
engineering costs
disposing of that
associated.
property?
Would we have a what?
You asked if we had any interest in disposing of that property to you ultimately. I personally am very much in favor of disposing of that property as long as we can take care of whatever legal issues we have and moving forward the county has no liability in it. Yes, I'm very much in favor to move that property into private hands.
We are, the way it was divided, it's kind of an S-shaped property. And we own inside and outside along the west edge. On the north side, this would eliminate all that and put it all into one piece.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be beneficial for everybody.
Well, whatever we need to do to satisfy the attorney's legal position, let's bring it back at whatever time it's.
So Rob's coming here, right?
Well, we don't have a meeting set, but we
So he's coming here, so we can arrange a meeting with him.
Yeah.
We can sit down and discuss whatever concerns we might have.
He's across the hall, isn't he? We can set up a meeting
Rob
time.
here today?
I think that Dan Jessen said that Rob Dotson's coming here. Is that right?
He said he was driving.
Okay.
Oh, he's on his way. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Okay.
What that means.
Okay,
All
well
right.
let's if we can, let's address that today if you're willing to.
Oh, that'd be great.
Okay.
Good. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Discussion on, on location of solid waste containers for Ireland Meadow resident is requested by Scott Atkin.
I don't see Mr. Atkin here.
Didn't we get that taken care of already,
Well-
Bruce? But he still wanted to be on the agenda, or?
I can
Why don't
speak
you
a
have
little
Bruce
bit to
come
that.
forward and, yeah.
Bruce, if
Do you want to come
could-
talk, Bruce?
So while Bruce is coming up, I was out of the office a little bit last week, and Cindy, my chief deputy, spoke with Mr. Atkin, and he had originally requested to be on in September, and we were going to kind of address that. Bruce and I went and looked at it, and Bruce had kind of made a decision, I think, to mitigate the issue. But in the meantime, Cindy went ahead and said, well, let's put you on the agenda, and it was time for the agenda to be out, and I said, well, let's just go ahead and go with it and give him a chance to speak. And it's unfortunate that he didn't come, but Bruce, I think, knows some of the issues that he's addressed.
So his cabin is in Ireland Meadows. He'd have to go out of the subdivision and then travel toward Penguich on 143 to the garbage cans to dispose of his stuff. And it was like 4 mile round trip is what John and I measured it at. And we just talked to, that part of the county is actually on the trade that we did with Bryan Head. And so we just went to Bryan Head and asked him if they could put 1 container up there, and they said, oh, sure. So there was 4 containers there. 1 will be at the inlet of Ireland Meadows. Seemed like an easy. When we went and done that, I wasn't aware there was so many cabins in there. I went and counted them when we did the thing with Bryan Head, but I didn't count those. I didn't even know they were there. I thought there was only the 2 subdivisions, and there's a whole separate subdivision there.
How many?
I think John and I counted 11. So was it
4
11?
miles. We drive more than 4 miles to take care of our own stuff in Cedar.
Yeah. It was just easy to mitigate. It wasn't that big a deal. It was just good customer service to move the can, and it was easy. So
it's regular weekly garbage.
Yeah,
pickup.
regular
It's
weekly.
It's not extra that you'd have to haul the land.
This is just stuff from their cabin. But it really he had a good point and he made sense, and I wanted to go see if it really did, and so John and I drove up there. And
so does he still have a complaint with what you?
He does.
I think he's and I guess I don't know. I'm not going to say to what his complaint is because I don't know.
So if you want to, that's his argument right there. I don't know if you want to address that or not, but he's.
Want this read, Mr. Chairman?
I'm trying to get to it.
He had a few other concerns about. There were some issues that kind of have been addressed as the ordinance was developed and over the years.
Right. He was mad because, and I'm talking off the top of my mind here, that he said, I got to pay for 2 garbage disposals and I can only live in 1 house at a time. So he was upset that he doesn't generate trash in Cedar City if he is up the mountain.
Well, that's
it's kind of like owning 2 cars. You still have to license them both.
That's a recurring complaint.
Right.
We're not going to change anything on that.
So that was the only one that I.
Be very kind. We're just not going to. If you have a habitable dwelling, you have to pay the garbage.
And I brought the.
And we there's no way that we can hire somebody to go around and say, oh yeah, well they're here today and they're it's just
the logistics of it.
And that's the way it was set up when we first started the landfill, which was prior to any of us being on the commission. But that was the rule that was established, and time again it's been contested, and we just it's the only way we can really do it.
I agree. If it's a habitable living space, it gets assessed that fee. So.
Right. Yeah. I don't.
And we went up there. I guess I was opposed to moving it till I went up there and seen, and it was easy. It's better customer service. I could agree with him on moving the can. Good. So we did.
He's also upset that he's paying for the ones that are on the highway. Other people use. There's unauthorized use, and he doesn't want to pay for that. But and that's a problem for all of us.
And he mentions that he's responsible for that, but really he isn't. He's
not
responsible for his bill, and Bruce ultimately takes care of that. So.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
But I think it was a real positive.
He asked me last fall why I didn't get better road service. He wanted to know how much tax he'd paid. So I asked Nicole to look it up, and the amounts that he'd paid $13 for road maintenance over the last 3 or 4 years, and he said, so I guess that answers me pretty well.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that went away.
Okay.
Thanks for making that change with it.
Oh yeah,
that was easy, and hopefully we'll solve.
I liked his suggestion. We went up to look at it. We're not hard and fast on if we can make it better for sure.
It was a real positive change, and I think it's also important to note that Bryan Head was willing to.
Yeah, they were real easy to work with. They're a good partner with us.
Big rooms.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
For Dan and for Rob and George. Oh, he's doing 10.
Are you, Dan? Are you involved in the discussion with Rob and? Yeah.
Do we?
No, I'm on the next agenda.
Okay.
Item, but if you wanna
right. No,
If we could, I'd like to do that meeting right after this meeting.
Okay.
Are you guys okay to wait a few more minutes? We've got a couple more agenda items, and
We should be
I'd
just
like to
about finished.
in on it.
Okay. Number 9, consider approval of hearing officer recommendation for personal property appeal of account P997225 for the Three Peaks Power. Mr. Jessen.
This is about as housekeeping boilerplate as it gets. We had a special meeting with the Board of Education. We had a hearing officer come in. This is in regards to the Three Peaks Power appeal that needs to be handled at the state. Unfortunately, in order to make that happen, it had to come back through our Board of Equalization and through you guys and circle back up again. This is about they're contesting the value because the state decided that they needed that part of the value with the was it the transfer station that had to be built? John, do you remember specifically what it was?
There was some Rocky Mountain Power infrastructure that had been included, and they wanted it to be excluded.
Right. They wanted it to be excluded from their value. It was included. They went ahead and paid the taxes because they didn't want it to suspend incentive payments, but they challenged it. And even though the State Tax Commission ultimately needs to make a ruling on this, it's going to apply. There'll be a precedent set. It had to circle through our Board of Equalization. So we're very much we're working with Three Peaks Power to process this appeal. But doing our part, we needed to have our board, sit and have our hearing officer sit, and his recommendation is that we deny that so that it will go back up to the State Tax Commission. So that's what we're doing.
Interconnection costs is, now I'm reading this, that's what they're protesting, that they're being billed.
The interconnection, that's correct.
Taxes on the interconnection.
This is from our hearing officer. This letter is a summation of the Board of Equalization hearing conducted August 21st. The appellant questioned the inclusion of a 1.197318, that's 1.1 million, assessment for the interconnection costs associated with the project. They stated that it is a fee that is charged by Pacific Corp for the equipment and labor required to upload the power generated from the solar plant to Pacific Corp. They contested 3 primary issues. The interconnect costs are considered an intangible item. 2, they are located on Pacific Corp's property. 3, other taxing entities located in other states do not consider interconnection costs as a taxable item. Iron County Assessor's Office, which was primarily represented by Cindy Bullock, contested that the interconnection costs were considered personal property on the notice of valuation. Since an ambiguity exists to whether the interconnect costs are tangible or not, I am recommending no adjustment and understand that the appellant will likely appeal to the Utah State Tax Commission, and a precedent will be set for Iron County to follow in this and future cases involving solar plants.
And who was the hearing officer?
Daniel Johnson. We've used him for quite a while. He's a good.
Yeah, several years.
So do you request that we officially deny this appeal?
Mm-hmm.
Therefore it refers it back to State Tax Commission. It is essentially assessed property. It shouldn't be at the state tax to begin with.
Yeah, and it doesn't automatically go there. They'll have to then appeal your denial, but that's their intent.
But it moves it.
It moves it to the correct
off.
venue. Yeah.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would move that we deny the personal property appeal for account number PP7225 for Three Peaks Power.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Adrian, we're up to personnel.
A few personnel-related agenda items that I'll combine most of them together in the interest of time. The first one is requesting approval for the transfer and essentially a promotion of Zachary Wood from Corrections Deputy to Patrol Deputy with the effective date of August 26th, 2018. This is backfilling a vacant Patrol Deputy position, and would be eligible for the 5% increase that's related to our transfer and promotion policy. We also have, as I had mentioned earlier today in my department report, we had Ashley Barrett beginning her first day on the job as DMV title and registration technician. So we're using today as her effective hire date and seeking approval for that backfill of the position that was created by the recent retirement of Terry Wood in the DMV office.
Let's take those two.
We'll do those.
Let's take
that
those
point.
two first. They're a little more straightforward.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move approval in the Sheriff's Department of a transfer of Zachary Wood from Corrections Deputy to Patrol Deputy effective date 8/26/2018. Backfill a vacant position and approve the salary increase with this promotion. Also, move approval of new hire Ashley Barrett as a DMV title and registration technician, effective date today, which is also a backfill of a vacant position.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those approved.
The next couple of agenda items, personnel changes within the Corrections Department. The first one is simply just requesting approval for new hire Robert Stammet, for him to have the effective hire date of September 9th is what we ended up, because that's a Sunday, but it's what we're seeking, so that we're approving him for that day so he can travel to post. Mr. Stammet comes to us with a lot of prior experience. I think this is kind of one of our first experiences with some of the recent changes that we've made to our recruitment and starting wage, to where it allows us the opportunity to recruit more experienced corrections and public safety officers. Comes from Washington State. 10 or 11 years in corrections. 11. So I think he's going to be a good addition. Certification, just even with his prior experience, because Utah doesn't recognize, unfortunately, that training. So he's not going to qualify for the new hire bonus that would be applicable if he was Utah certified, but we get the benefit of that prior experience, and we are able to start him a little further into the range, and that negotiation went.
So is it Stammer or Stammet?
Stammet, S-T-A-M-M-E-T.
T, okay.
2 T's? 1 T?
1 T?
Okay, 1 T.
Okay.
So, and then the next one within corrections, we have Corporal Carrie Turl. Her last day was last week, correct?
It will actually be the first. We have that crossover.
Okay.
She had to work her last day and she had leave.
Okay.
So.
Okay, so we have Corporal Turl, who has accepted a position up north. Okay, sorry. You see, I'm a little bit uninformed, or I've been told I just can't keep everything square in my head sometimes. But it's going to create a corporal opening, and we actually had Anna Teeples, who has been serving as an interim corporal while Jared Hansen is on active military duty. So with this opening, it only makes sense to remove the interim tag from Anna Teeples to make her just a regular full-fledged corporal within corrections. It will create a new opportunity for an interim corporal to be assigned, and then it'll also create a backfill corrections deputy position due to the resignation of Mr.
So Adrian, how long will Jared Hansen be gone, and will, upon his return, will we have then 2 corporal positions?
Spring of next year, I think it's March.
I don't have the date.
I want to say March of 2019 is
And
estimated.
what do we do with the double corporal standing then?
It would just go back. It would just be an interim, just to fill in that position just while his leave.
Yeah, so that's why the interim tag would just be removed. The interim, and they would go back to their prior assigned.
She would go back as interim upon his return. Is that what you're saying?
No, we'd remove the interim tag, and they would return to their prior assigned position, and allowing because Corporal Hansen would return at the same position that he was assigned prior, which is a requirement for active military.
So you're going to fill that interim from somebody within.
Correct.
Okay.
And then that position will dissolve back to regular corrections officer upon Jared's return.
And that'll be communicated to that person, just like it was, communicated to Ms. Teeples that was a possibility, but now she's actually, an opportunity's arisen. She's proven herself well, and it makes a lot of sense to just allow her that opportunity to go into a regularly assigned corporal.
Very good. Mr. Chairman, I'd move the approval of new hire Robert Stammet as Corrections Deputy, effective 9/9/2018 as a backfill position, and approval to convert Anna Teeples from interim corporal to regular corporal due to the recent resignation of Corporal Kerry Terrell, effective 8/26/18.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, those items are approved.
Alden Correction Deputy Technician. Oh, you think I asked. Adrian, when did we start calling him Correction Deputy Technician? We added that word?
I wonder if that's a typo.
We added technician on there?
Well, we've got it in there, but I almost wonder if, it's not correct.
It's supposed to be corrections deputy.
If we just had it. Okay.
Okay, I
got copy and paste on this agenda too, so.
I guess they probably are a technician, but we never caught them.
I got kind of excited if you want to wipe that one out.
I double checked it. Hey, Adrian, is that spelling of Zachary correct? I think so. Like I double checked it.
That is kind of just a different spelling. That one's correct, but
so it's a unique spelling there, but that is correct. Thank you.
Just Zach. No.
Thank you.
Oh, do you?
Boy.
Do we have anything on non-delegated?
We need to talk about the courthouse. If there's anything on dogs or boards.
Happily nothing on dogs.
I gotta apologize. I was planning on having numbers for you, but I got bronchitis last weekend, and I actually was completely out all week. It was that bad. I can talk today, and I'm here, so I'm counting that as good.
Yeah.
So I am still waiting back for my bid for my sign, but I actually have one with dimensions, so it's much easier to see what we're doing for you.
So 72 inches, that's 6 feet high and 10 feet wide.
They were trying to get a hold of me all week to figure out what I wanted to bid, and I wasn't answering my cell phone.
I like it.
This A stands out better than B in my mind. The sign down at the bottom of the stairs on the wall is about what A is, and those letters stand out
The silver?
a lot better on that picture than.
The only reason I voted for the bronze is because that entry will probably be bronze. All the entries will change to bronze at some point.
That stands out a lot better. The aluminum entry looks
Maybe
like
that
an
won't
entry.
matter. I guess the letters will be kind of a bronze color, won't they? On this one.
These ought to be bronze.
It would be, yeah, so the two choices on them, and there's absolutely no cost difference between the two.
I prefer the A because
Yeah,
it's easier to
you
read.
have a stainless steel background with dark letters, or you have brush or dark
Like a nickel.
bronze with silver lettering. That's the two difference.
the thing down on the wall is a good thing to look at if you want a perspective of how it looks.
I'm with Dale. I think that silver background's going to look
Stands out.
nice. You can do stainless. Is it stainless or aluminum
It's
or some
Either one
I
will.
think it'll be
alloy
stainless. I'm gonna push for stainless out there, because stainless
for weather?
for weathering purposes.
But even aluminum won't tarnish either. The
No.
stainless will look
We
better.
added the 68 South underneath the name as requested. I don't know if you saw that or not.
That is
Yeah, I
great.
did. Thank you.
Which
That's
I
im-
agreed with you. I already
that's
talked to
important.
him about it before I brought it in. So.
Then let's talk about the trees. That's on your agenda.
Yes, the landscaper is really having heartburn about doing us up a nice project up and still having those old big trees out front. They did sharpen their pencil and took about $3,000 off of the tree trimming. I know he's talked with Commissioner Adams about it. I don't know if you want to address it or not. But
I brought this up to the other commissioners and told them just what you just reiterated, and totally unofficial vote. But I had changed my mind and said let's take them out, and the other two said let's leave them in. So, in my opinion, tell him to move forward with the trees in place.
So that's my direction. That's my direction. So.
What about the woodpecker holes?
If you notice, there's a floating Dynalift around. That's actually for that. They will be back in town in September, which is really not that far away now.
Yeah, really.
Then they will come
They'll
in
be
and
ahead of
take
the
care.
landscaper
They will
then.
be ahead of the landscaper. The landscaper will start mid-September, and then we'll be done by 1st of October. His is
Plenty of weather for the grass to knead down.
yeah. And he's also, at that point, we have a lot more moisture in the area, and we won't need as much
Size of
water.
That little pavilion pad, Lester.
We're up to 16 by 16 unless you want me to make it bigger. I make it whatever size you guys want me to make it. I don't really care.
Well, that makes more sense than 12-12.
Yeah.
That's-
I have to say I was super excited when you piped up and said make it bigger.
Yeah, I was trying to keep it small for cost purposes, but I'm more than
Well, and if we can, because we do get together, and it would make just a fantastic place. And
so. If you want to talk with the other elected officials in the building and figure out if we want
Now-
a 2 or 3 table, then I'll design it for
okay,
that.
I didn't.
Because I was originally thinking a 2-table area, but if we want to make it,
Right now, it's a pad only.
it's just a pad only.
Yeah.
So-
Well, and you're going to pour it so that you could mount a
Yeah, we'll
a
do
gazebo on it later. Or,
a kind of a pergola type,
Uh-huh.
where it won't be. At the moment, I'm thinking not a full cover, but a shade cover.
Okay.
We may do a full cover. I'm
Anyway,
not sure.
Dale, I didn't want to misrepresent you, but I've been telling everybody 16 by 20. Just you'd mentioned that in the meeting, and I got pretty excited about.
Concrete is pretty cheap. This
It
part of
is.
the game.
Okay.
And secondly, I think we'd want to plan for either weld plates to move forward with the pavilion sometime next year. Unless you'd rather just
I was just going to have them
Rebolt
thicken
it.
the end and then
just bolt it down.
bolt it and epoxy them in. That way, I don't have.
If you can make 16 by 20
Have a
fit
trip hazard.
the configuration out there, I think it's.
Everyone that I spoke to was really excited about that. Nobody's here, but
Pavilion sometime next year, it'll be used by a lot of
Used a lot.
community.
it will be.
And the public can use it if they want.
Absolutely.
It'll be used a lot by a lot of.
We caught some kids one time, some young kids smoking in the dumpster, and they could smoke in the pavilion instead.
In the dumpster?
They were inside the dumpster.
That could get dangerous.
Yeah, that's.
Thought it wasn't flammable in there, but yeah, or get hauled off.
Are you okay with the trees, Lester? Does that bother you?
I'm fine. I know it was more of a push from Parowan City and
You
the local
indicated that.
the local individuals that were pushing on that. I have a hard time of landscaping, knowing I'm going to come back and tear up part of that landscaping. That's my harm burden from it. But
We'll- If you could transplant those over to my house, then
Yeah.
might.
They seem to be healthy, so if they've got 10 or 15 years left in them, then And that was my original thinking, then I kind of start
Yeah.
swayed.
Showing their age.
Some of
I'm fine.
some of mine is
Their age, and they need to be
they're
maintained, no
they're
question.
most of my mess outside are from those 2 trees.
Yeah,
True.
I know.
So
But they offer some prominence to the building.
They're definitely stately, but they seem to be healthy so far. If they had like
Let's just suffer through it and
Need to be
enjoy 'em.
trimmed
all
properly.
right, I will let them know. So
Thanks for all you do.
I also
You've had
have
a busy.
keys for you guys for the visitor center, and I also have keys for that office space for you if you need it in season.
And speaking of keys, I want to visit with you offline for 2 shakes.
Yeah, and I'll need to get the key number from you too.
I don't remember this
Key number.
Oh, awesome.
Keys from the visitor center that I
Collected.
So how many keys do we need for the visitor center? Because I think I've got like 7 or 8 at home in a pile. Hallelujah.
Good. I can throw away about.
Oh, while we're talking about this, we have that commission room in there, and I haven't used it. I use it maybe once or twice a year. Should we take a chance and just let them use that? Seems like if we really need, we can find a place.
Are you talking in the Heritage or the?
I'm talking in the visitor
Center.
center. We got that commission room, and they never let anybody use it. And I personally,
That little tiny one?
yeah, with it's glass. I think we should take that sign off and let them use it. And we've always got 2 or 3 options.
Well, we have Heritage too.
Yeah, we got Heritage, and we got the other meeting room, behind the.
Got 2 other rooms down there.
Yeah. So.
No, I agree with you. If they can use it, well, let them.
So just have her take that sign down, and she can let people use it. I know.
That's actually the only door that this key opens.
Oh.
It'll get you into this key will actually, I'll still give it to you, but this key will get you in, it gets you into that side of the building, so if you are using the conference room.
Great.
So is the main door on a card or on a key?
It's key. That whole building's keyed still. Because that's done, I get the commission to approve the budget cards.
Are you anxious to kind of get rid of some building projects, Lester?
Heck no, that's what I live for.
I'm afraid you weren't going to live through it though, as it was last year.
True, we about killed him off there.
Yeah, that's what happens when you run a machine for 13 hours and you have bronchitis. It's not a smart move.
Okay, if there are no other items, we will close the meeting and adjourn.
Let me see if I can find information on that Zinke meeting.
All right, so for sure sign you up, for sure not your wife. Yeah?
Well, now I've got questions with
Yeah.
Alma's
Yeah,
Zinke
let's,
meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know my wife will be out.
Oh, it's probably that Mindy Dieter. Sent that information. That's the hardest thing when you do a search. Remember who sent it to you.
Just got a call back from Maria on the Holden Rock thing. We need to do we'll need to do an agenda item. She said we can certainly participate, but no more than 10,000. I would need to do a budget adjustment for the end of the year, so.
It does have the money.
So,
Okay.
It's the same key.
John, put that on.
Which door does it open?
Now this, it doesn't open the main visitor center door, but the one to the west door.
Yeah, and that's
Goes
what
into the conference
what
room.
we had before.
What were you saying?
Open that door and then get into the conference room.
Gotcha.
Okay. Now, this key.
Do we need that for a tourism? We need to vote on tourism board or just tourism board?
The other building.
We probably don't need that as an agenda.
South or north office, it will open.
Just
the
do it
main
as
door.
he'll do it as a budget adjustment at year end because she has the money already.
First office you walk
I think it would
into.
just be a budget adjustment.
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Sorry.
Garfield's doing a 40.
Oh.
Whatever else he has, and they've asked us. Michael.
Certainly wouldn't hurt to do an agenda item.
And then it would still be a budget adjustment at year end because we're
Right.
doing it mid-year.
And I would suggest you do that just so that you've got agendized and you can speak out in favor of it and
Put it on the next agenda.
agenda.
in my opinion. We'll just have John put that on the next agenda for that, prove that 10,000.
And it's the, what was it, a parkway, what was it called?
It's a Hole in the Rock Parkway.
But there's a name
You
for it.
say
Like
Centennial Park? Hole in the
No,
Rock.
let me
Is
pull
that
up the thing from.
if you've got anything to send me, maybe send it to me.
Well, let me see what it says. We don't have much of anything.
Oh,
Like Memorial or Centennial or.
swell.
Shit. Who erased it? I sent it to.
Did Rob Dotson leave?
I think he left.
Okay. Are you good?
I've talked with Rob. I'm good with what he said he wants to do.
Okay.
Oh, I mean, no,
Oh,
I
wait.
erased it. I
That's
sent it
tomorrow.
forwarded it to Maria.
Is anybody going to this tomorrow? Rob Bishop, Weaver Commission Chambers, Department of Interior Reorganization. Oh, Danny, where did Danny go? I wonder if he's gonna go up to that tomorrow. How will the Department of Interior Reorganization benefit Utahns? That's the hearing tomorrow. The governor, Rob Bishop.
Where in the world?
Susan.
In the visitor center? Awesome.
So that's that one.
Okay, now.
So did you see the Spectrum article yesterday of Rob Bishop saying, I'm going to do everything I can to support Ogden?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
That was
So
almost it.
Cindy has a key, but it doesn't open this door.
This is a field hearing on the 29th. Okay, I'm on the wrong email.
So everybody keys open.
Okay.
Which I'll have them come over and check that again.
But I think, I know that we've got electronic locks, but we get asked a lot to, of course, if this one opens,
Did I
if
dream
everybody's
this
key opens
Zinke
this, then that's
meeting?
good enough.
Oh, there's like it's a field hearing.
I don't know, what do you think?
I hope it's not over at the same time.
If Chanel and Jeannie had just a hard key.
Maybe it wasn't Mindy Dieter.
Email me.
Take a picture of Cindy's key?
I just need, there's a number on the key.
Okay.
Like that.
That way you can match it.
We're still online.
Oh, dang it, I did the one, but forgot the other. Well, not a lot.
Somebody
Now I got another key for you. That key opens the south office or the north office in the visitor office building. There'll be an